A federal claims court has begun hearings on potential links between autism and childhood vaccines. Large scientific studies have found no connection, but thousands of parents have filed claims hoping to receive compensation from a government fund set up to help people injured by vaccinations. And here to discuss the science at the heart of these hearings is Dr. Shelov, chairman of Pediatrics at Maimonides Medical Center. Dr. Shelov, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure to be here.
Let's start with the science behind this. What does the latest research tell us about any potential link to vaccinations?
Well, first it's important to make people really understand there is no link between vaccine administration and autism. And there have been a number of very reputable organizations, Institute of Medicine, the CDC, Academy of Pediatrics, a host of others that have not come up with a link. And it's important, parents, not to stop immunizing your child.
And yet so many parents do feel very strongly, that there is a link.
Well, I can't blame them because they're looking for something that's going on that's caused this really horrible thing to happen to their kids. It's caused difficulties at home, family interactions, but it's not vaccines. We've got to keep looking for what the real cause is.
Well, then what are some of the other causes that are possible causes, I should say, that are being considered?
Well, I think there's a host of different things. The environment, toxicity, whether it's medications, things in the food perhaps, environmental exposures that we don't know about. Those all have to be factored in. It's a complicated world with lots of things out there that kids could get into or parents could unknowingly pass on to their children without even knowing it. So I think there's lots of investigation to do, but don't implicate vaccines. It would be a tragedy if we did that.
Is there one possible cause that is being looked at more seriously than others, one that seems potentially more likely?
I think the answer will be somewhere in the environment. I really do. And it's something that has seeped its way into our environmental exposure in ways that we just do not understand. There are pockets of where we see autism in areas much higher percentage than in others. Those are places to look more carefully at. So I think that's where it's going to be, but I wouldn't pin it yet on anything. It'd be premature to do that.
And what is the incidence rate at this point? What's the latest number?
Well, the CDC talks about 1 in 150 kids, but it's because we've changed the definition that some of the numbers seem very high. It's not like it's totally an epidemic. I want to also be clear about that. We've made a broader definition of autism. We've called it an autistic spectrum, whereas we might have used other diagnoses before then. So don't get too alarmed, but there definitely is an increase, absolutely, in the number of autistic kids.
In the stories that I've done, I understand that early intervention can really make a very big difference for autistic children. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, there are some terrific schools, resources that have been put together that take a comprehensive approach that's language involvement, interaction, one-on-one, very personnel involved and intense, but they definitely make a difference when it comes to moving a child through the developmental stages, getting a child to at least socially interact and gain some language. There's hope, but it's very expensive, and that's what we should be spending our money on, developing interventions that are effective.
And are those widely available to parents?
That's the problem. It's spotty. Certain school systems have them built in, certain communities have them built in, others do not. And that's the challenge for parents, to find a place that they can take advantage of those resources.
For a parent who may have just gotten this diagnosis, what would be your first word of advice, the first thing that they should do as they begin down this road with their child?
First, take a deep breath. It's a long road, and it's one that doesn't seem to have any short-term relief. Work with your pediatrician to develop the kinds of resources. Parents and advocates are the best advocates for their kids. They can make the resources happen if they're not really available to them. And there are organizations out there. Bob Wright from our own NBC has a fabulous organization. That's a result of having involvement with autism. And those are the kind of things you want to see that really make this stay on everybody's radar screen so we can find the cause.
All right, Dr. Shelov, thanks so much for joining us today.
Pleasure.